Etapu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Heru Nefer. This is Qesankh Keperu with another exciting video for you. And in this video, I want to talk about how Heru or Horus is the key to you winning in life. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. This is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. And if you'd like to know more about my spiritual teachings, you can scroll down below and click on one of the ebook links. You can download those ebooks today. They're free and start reading. However, if you want to know more and you want to follow that rabbit down the rabbit hole, you can become a Patreon supporter. As a supporter, you'll get exclusive access to instructional videos on the spiritual and esoteric, videos that'll teach you how to summon the spirit, contact the ancestors, astral travel, do self-healing, proper breathing, meditation. And if you're an Asir level supporter, you'll get all your oracle readings for free. So become a Patreon supporter. You can cancel at any time. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. So, Heru Nefer, may Buddha bless you. Grand Rising. It is good to see all of you coming in to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button. So I want to talk about one of the oldest deities in the world, which comes out of ancient Kemet, Heru, otherwise known as Horus. But before I do that, I'd like to talk a little bit about this book here, the Medunate. Now, this book is a very important book. Prior to me reading this book, I studied with the great Egyptologist Joseph ben Jacqueline, or I should say, as he's affectionately known as, Dr. Ben. And Dr. Ben gave a lot of great information on Kemet, Egypt. And we are all in debt to him because he was pumping that information out and doing the research when no one else was. When the academic circles were trying to claim that Egypt was a European civilization simply because it was near the shore and in Northeast Africa. And in fact, Egypt being near the shore facilitated trade and commerce. So much so that in his book, Dr. Chancellor Williams, I believe it was the destruction of Black civilization, talked about how this transformed Egypt from a Black civilization to a multicultural civilization, then to a white civilization. And we know that there were many conquerors of Kemet, Egypt. We know that the Muslims enslaved people in Africa. We know that the Europeans came in. And then lastly, we know about how Africans put their own brothers and sisters into slavery. But I digress. Going back to Dr. Ben, once Dr. Ben passed on and transitioned as an ancestor, many people were lost and they were looking again for a master teacher, which they have not found. But while I was studying with Dr. Ben, Hetepu, Claire, Hetepu, peace, Gloria, Hetepu, Hetepu to the Queen. After I left Dr. Ben, because I was seeking higher spiritual wisdom, and I am going to give you a clear understanding of what that entailed. You see, I wasn't only studying with Dr. Ben, I was also studying with Dr. Clark, Dr. Smalls, and many others. And I found their teachings to be great, but lacking. Lacking in the sense that it did not present a way of life to live by. No tenets, no culture, no customs. And I was afraid that us assimilating this knowledge would only make us information smart, like Sebek. But we would have no culture to indoctrinate us into that would keep our mindset firmly embedded in the knowledge and the wisdom. And hence, many disciples or these individuals who had studied with these great men went on to lecture and start their own YouTube channels, which were nothing more than intellectual masturbation. And we found that what was occurring is that they preached the information but did not live it, which is what I was afraid of. You see, which I was very concerned about. So when I left Dr. Ben, I left for higher spiritual knowledge in the form of a way to live, a lifestyle. And I found the book, The Medunate by Ra'u Nefer Amen, also known as Shechem or Shechem. And when I read this book, and I had to read it 3 or 4 times just to digest the amount of information it contained, I was elated because finally I had found something that presented not only a way to live, but an explanation as to the science of what African people had left behind. I no longer saw it as just primitive people beating a drum. I no longer saw it as primitive people wearing face paint, dancing around in a circle. I began to understand the occult science behind what they were doing. The book literally opened my eyes and presented a way of life to live by. And the best part of the book that cemented this culture was the use of the oracle system, the Medunate, or the Oracle of Tahuti. This was the nail in the coffin, as the colloquial term goes, because then I knew that I could no longer study with Dr. Ben, that I had found something that presented to me a way to live, which contained an initiation system, which contained an explanation as to who God is, what's this universe about, who are we. This book answered those questions for me in a very, very scientific manner. And it proved once and for all that African people were not primitive. In fact, it proved the exact opposite, that African people were high scientists, high magicians, intellectuals that studied the stars, that invented mathematics, that invented engineering. It finally put the pieces of the puzzle together. But what now disheartens me and upsets me, as much as I love this book and its worth, people in the ADOS community, the FBA community, the freedom community are clueless as to this book, what it is, and what it contains. So this shows me that our people have not done our homework. This shows me that instead of choosing the path of higher wisdom and higher knowledge, the majority of us have chosen the path of debauchery. Because we cannot say that there are no sages among us. We cannot say that our leaders are no longer with us. Because the man who authored this book is a great man. And typical of what we do is we assimilate information, regurgitate it, and then pretend to be knowledgeable. But you can't do that with this book. This book challenges you to live a certain way of life. And the other thing that we do not do is we do not protect that which is our own. We don't. The only ones I know in our community that do in a way are the members of the Nation of Islam and the Hebrew Israelites. But those are exclusive niche organizations. Other than that, we have allowed and sometimes assisted Europeans in cultural appropriation. I don't want to hear us complain about these Egyptian movies that they are making with all white Egyptians. I don't want them complaining about the movie Cleopatra with a white woman in the lead. Because when you have not adapted, assimilated, and lived the culture of the ancient Kemetic people, you therefore have no right to call it your own. The Jewish people have laid claim to the Bible and the Talmud and the Torah, and they have lived it. But we have yet to lay claim to the Kemetic way of life. But you see, we follow the Cardi B's and Nicki Minaj's and the Kanye Wests. We indulge in sports and all other forms of entertainment. Instead of us doing our rituals and our meditations and our Qigong, we're talking about Beyonce and Jay-Z. So don't come to me telling me that Hollywood is making another movie with Gal Gadot as the lead when you have not claimed this religion, when you have not claimed this way of life. You see, if I go say something to the Muslims, they're ready to take me out. If I speak negatively of Muhammad, they are ready to kill me. If I infringe upon the Jews and their religion, they are ready to castrate me, and rightly so. Now, you have to protect your house. You have to clean it. You have to make sure there's furniture. You have to paint it. And you have to keep the doors closed against unwanted visitors. But you see, we have a habit of leaving the door open, as we did in Africa, to unwanted visitors and our enemies. And thus they trespass. And not only do they trespass, they come into our houses and sit in our chairs and they say, this chair is mine. This TV is mine. And we allow them to pick it up and take it out. In fact, so lazy and absent-minded are we that we allow them to pull up U-Hauls and start taking our furniture. But don't let them talk bad about Jay-Z or Beyonce, then there's a fight. Don't let them talk bad about weaves and eyelashes and fake nails and Brazilian booty lifts, then there's a fight. We indulge in the wrong things and we protect the wrong things as our culture. I took the time, I believe it was Saturday afternoon, to watch a 6-hour documentary on this woman. I'm not going to give out her name, who's a spiritual leader who I have followed her career for a long time, and I knew that she was detrimental to the health of the people, who taught about suicide and how it's okay because you're going to be reincarnated, so you can, quote unquote, hit the delete button. And it's obvious that her information, her teachings are detrimental to the masses of not only her followers, but the people out there suffering from mental illness, who, based on her advice, would delete themselves. But now if you go to her channel and you speak ill of her or her teachings, watch how the followers attack you and troll you. And I'm here to tell you, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, even though her message is dangerous. You see, they have enough smarts to know to protect their own, to covet it, to value it. And if you ask these individuals about her teachings, you will hear various anecdotal testimonies about her teachings and how it has helped to enhance their lives. But I will guarantee you, and I will put money on this, if someone attacks me on my channel while I am speaking, not one of you would defend me. Not one. I have seen the Shechem or Shechem teach things in the most righteous way, and people speak ill of him, yet no one defends him. This is a disgrace. This is a disgrace. And the reason that this is because not that you don't value the teacher, you don't value the sage. The problem is you don't value the teachings. You don't care about the teachings. So don't give me, well, we have no power. Hollywood's going to make these movies and we can't stop them. As a collective, you could. The Church of Scientology band together to stop the IRS so that the IRS wouldn't require them to pay taxes. So don't tell me you can't. And I've already given you the secrets on how to change reality. So it saddens me how this wisdom and knowledge, number one, you're not practicing it, and number two, you're not passing it on to your children. Any person that I associate with knows and understands clearly that I follow the Kemetic way of life. And they don't, I have never told them. And the reason why they know is because they can see in my house the statues of the deities. They can see by the way I meditate constantly. They put two and two together. But what you do is you walk around with t-shirts of Kelly Rowlands, of Will Smith, of Kanye West. That's your God. That's your religion, hip hop. The most detrimental thing to Black people today. You go to the Nation of Islam or the Israelites, you find that the first and foremost thing they uphold is the teachings. And they'll tell you that. The second is they may have an interest in hip hop. But with you, everything else comes first. Everything else. And it may be a new thing this week and another thing next week, but it will never be the Kemetic spiritual way of life. You don't practice it. You don't protect it. You don't cover it. You don't pass it on to your children. And if I did a survey right now of how many people have the Meduna Tear Volume 1 in their homes, it would be sad and pathetic to see the results. And I have been teaching for years based on the same book. And some of you have been following me for years. And if I ask some of you, what did the Oracle say is your destiny reading? 99.9% of you don't say, I don't know. And I have been teaching for years, and you can set up a consultation with me. So as my wise teacher once told me, you can't be half a gangster. You're either all in this or you're out. You're either 100% or you're out. So what is the problem? What is the problem? And the problem is, and I'm going to tell you, is because you'll run to anything that's not Black. You'll run to Christianity on Sunday. You'll run to Islam. But you won't come home. You won't come home to that which is yours and that which is better. You see, these pastor ministers, not only are they crooked to the core, but what they're teaching is false, full of lies, and ineffective. It cannot work. And they know this. And they know that all of you are fools. They know this. My friend Greg just told me there was a minister preaching how his congregation didn't care about God because they wouldn't give him enough money to buy a new Rolex watch. And next week, he'll have a full congregation. A minister, I believe, in Brooklyn was robbed by some young thugs of $1 million in jewelry he was wearing. A minister on the pulpit wearing $1 million worth of jewelry. Yet people come to his church. You need to take stock of what you want in life. When I want something in life, I know to do a ritual. And I have seen time and time again how the ritual works. 100%. I put up on my community tab a challenge to have everybody do the money ritual for $20. I gave clear instructions on how the ritual should work and asked everybody to do it. And I said, you will find money. So what happened? Several weeks later, I found $50 without even trying. And I posted the result on my community channel. And when I posted the results, people are like, oh wow, where's the ritual? Where are the instructions? I went back to look, I couldn't find it. I said, you should have already looked it up. You don't need me to show you proof. You should be doing it on your own. Well, I can't find a job. I gave you a job ritual. My mate is giving me problems. I said I'm available to do consultations to help you, and I can give you powders and candles and spells to help you with that. Seker Nefer Tara. That's God trying to tell these people. That's God trying to tell these people that this man is crooked and these pimp pastor ministers are crooked. That's not by accident. That's a synchronicity. But people just don't get it. They're too hard-headed. He tried to buy a jet and asked his congregation to finance it. What's next? A minister coming along and saying, listen, I need a moon base. I need a base on the moon to do my preaching. I need $1 billion for my congregation. If you love me and you love God, you will give me the $1 billion to have my moon base. And I would talk to my friend Greg, and I would tell him these things. And he just would repeatedly say, people are dumb. People are dumb. You know? And I don't want to agree with him. But their actions are dumb. For me to give to a minister that has 3 homes, 10 cars, and a jet, are you insane? You want me to give you money and you got 10 homes? I'm sorry, 10 cars, multiple homes, and a jet? And I can't even pay my rent? Are you insane? You want me to give to you? There was a brave man, and if I get the video, I'll show you the video, who actually caught Joel Osteen, I believe, outside a restaurant. And the guy was filming with Joel Osteen, and he had his camera, and he asked Joel Osteen if he could shoot some video with him. And Joel said yes. So he squeezed tightly close to Joel, started the video, and Joel was smiling. And the guy said, we're here with Joel Osteen. Hey, Joel, you know that you're an asshole, right? And Joel heard that and ran. That guy was brave, and he did the right thing. He did the right thing. But I digress. Alrighty. I'm going to now refer to the Metuneta. A lot of these videos will be a series that refers to the Metuneta. So if you do not have it, try to order it from Amazon. It's in short supply. Do the best you can. This was gifted to me by Seker Nefer Tyra, and I thank him for that, because my old one, y'all want to see my old one that I use in priesthood? Here it is. What's left of it. You see that? That's what's left of my old Metuneta. All right, and I can't find the rest of it. This goes way back, way back. All right. As I said before, Heru is one of the most oldest deities known. He is the son of Aset and Osir. He is also the inspiration for baby Jesus. But more importantly, the science is what we're interested in, because our ancestors did not just create deities with names for nothing. The deities represented principles. They were codified in the same way that we have the table of elements in chemistry. So Heru really represented Elmo the Barber Hetepu. Thank you so much. Thank you for putting that up there. Heru represents the will. Now, we have a misconception of what the will is. See, we think my will is strong, so I can resist that cigarette. I can resist those drugs. I can resist overeating. I can resist the girl with the big Brazilian booty. That's not your will. You see, God made us Neter, or Nebecher, mean Lord of all. Neter made us with a free will. What does that exactly mean, free will? That means I have the freedom to go left or right. I have the freedom to follow God or ignore God. No, that's not what it means. That's what modern psychotherapists have coined it. But it doesn't mean that. And our ancestors left a wealth of information to indicate what it meant in the anthropomorphic figure of Heru. Let us take a look at that. This is an image of Horus. He is a man, the body of a human, and the head of a hawk. Take a good look at that. And you can see Ra in the background. Ra is energy. It's the Kundalini force. You mix Ra with Heru, and then you have a very, very powerful person. I'm going to take a look at some more images. This is the hieroglyph of Heru wearing the crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. He is king of both Upper and Lower Egypt because Upper and Lower Egypt were divided at one point. Here he is with the Ra on top and the serpent Nekabet. And I'm going to give a class on what all of this means when it's combined together. The Ankh, the Ra, the Nekabet, the Heru. It is alchemy. Here is the eye of Heru. We'll get into that later. Now, Heru is also the king because he won the battle against Set, his uncle. Okay? Keep that in mind because the Kemetic people use nature to express certain faculties within us. And Heru, as a hawk, when they dive down after their prey, they are fixed. They are on point, narrow-minded, narrow-focused. They don't look left and right. They're focused solely on their prey. That is a type of analogy for your will. Now, I'm going to go to page 227. That used to be, I think, a TV show, 227. On the chapter on Heru, which explains what your will is. It says here, there's a great deal of misunderstandings that have gained permanence in the thinking of the majority of Egyptologists. Leading these is the popular misconception that Heru is the sun god. It is damning on two counts. For one, it is a perversion of the true meaning of the deity, and for another, it perpetuates the slur that African people worship material things like the sun, rivers, lakes, animals. In a qualified sense, we can say that the sun is used as a metaphor to lead thinking to the understanding of the set of phenomena under the control of the natural force labeled Heru. Specific to our present consideration is the division of the human metabolic system into two phases. One is characterized by the rise of bodily temperature and the other by its decrease. Each phase has its set of temperatures or temperaments depending or related to physical functions. Those that are directly related and dependent on the rise in temperature above the mean can be metaphorized as solar, the very extreme stages. The opposite phase is assigned to the moon, Mercury, and Saturn. The mean between the two extremes is assigned to Venus and Jupiter. Heru corresponds, therefore, to the solar phase of the psychophysical metabolic system or cycle, which is mediated by, let me see, noradrenaline, noradrenaline, and other chemicals of the sympathetic nervous system. It enables us to become and remain awake, per M. Heru, to externalize our focus of consciousness, to reason, pay attention to, carry out our will, to utilize the organs and faculties of external activities, eye, frontal part of the cerebrum, hands, legs, etc. Heru corresponds to our will, which is the freedom to follow or reject divine law, and our emotions. The freedom is the crux of our divinity. Without it, man would be compelled to follow the structural shaping forces of order, which manifest in the 10th sphere as the instincts that compel all other creatures to obey the law, in which case he could not be held accountable to law, human or divine, let alone be considered the likeness of God. Hence, spiritual growth occurs only when behavior and actions are initiated interdependent or emotional impulses. One ignores them. Many people are ignorant of the intrinsic freedom of their will, or are so habituated to acting out of emotional impulse or seemingly compulsion that they voluntarily renounce their intrinsic mastery over the spirit. This defaulting to the emotions is represented by Harukente and Ma'ati, or Heru the blind. The other common misconception about the will, the belief that power is an attribute of it. The ability to achieve one's will is therefore spoken as of strength of will. And this is the part where I spoke of earlier. But the very factors that make the will intrinsically free of emotional, the power part of our being, influence, also denies it of power as its attribute. A major correspondence of Heru, Shango, the sun, is the king and all people in authority. His function is to command the people and the army to carry out works. He does not have the power to do it himself. Similarly, when we declare our will to achieve a goal or carry out a behavior, we are commanding another part of our being which possesses the attribute of power. This is Ra, our life force. It is of interest to note that the symbol of Ra is a serpent surmounting the solar disk, and all of its creatures function. All of its creative functions are carried out through the agency of Hakau, words of power. We should not be surprised that the most primitive, hence most powerful part of our brain, the reptilian brain or R complex, is responsive to sound waves and rhythms and not ideas. Perhaps someday Western psychologists will realize that this part of the brain is the doorway to the root shaping factors of our behavior as well as the powers of nature. The supreme way, then, of willing events is through the chanting of a cow controlling the physical manifestation. This manner of declaring our will is symbolized by Heru Pa Karet, Heru the child. He is depicted emerging from a lotus wearing the red and white crown, holding a flail and crook in one hand while making the sign of silence and of chanting Hakau. The lotus, which is a flower that requires a great deal of sunlight, it closes with the setting of the sun, opens with its rising, is a symbol of the psychic center chakras, wherein manifest the forces represented by the words of power. The sign of silence and chanting hakal, which is made by the pointing the index finger to the mouth, symbolizes chanting combined with the cessation of ideation and the supreme means of expressing the will. Our willingness to carry out our will, as we all know so well, depends greatly on our state of vitality. Heru is associated in his work of protecting the work of Osir on our behalf by his 4 children. Happy, who represents a northern force and protects the small, or I'm not going to go into all that. So what we want, because he goes on detailing the 4 sons of Heru. Now, we talked before earlier about how Heru is the will, and you have the sun disk, which is the power or the force or the chi energy to empower the will. So let expand a little bit more on what I was trying to say about the will. You see, there's an incorrect understanding of the will. Your will has to be empowered in order. Therefore, when you're born, technically you're born with no predisposed position to one or the other, meaning you don't have a like or a dislike. You don't like tea, you don't hate coffee, you don't like the color red, you don't like the color yellow. You are neutral. You are out preference. That is the free will. And that is our essential nature. Therefore, we are not compelled in any way, shape, or form to like something over another because we have a free will. God is free from emotional compulsion. That's why God is in us and hate this and like that. God doesn't favor this above that. If that were the case, he wouldn't be a supreme being. And you have those attributes in you which makes you God, because you don't like or dislike for things. That's why what he was saying is you are above animals, which have to operate by instinct. That's hardwired into them. They can't just do what they want. Instinctively, bears have to hibernate. A mother gives birth to baby bears. Those baby bears know when they grow up, they have to hibernate. No one tells them that. There's no memo that goes around to the bears saying, come winter, you need to go into a cave and hibernate. They instinctively know that. And they cannot act against that. It is hardwired and programmed into them as so procreation. You can decide that you don't want to be a father. Your will is free. You're not conditioned and or compelled to do one thing over another. Now, but then you'll say, well, how is it that I'm always smoking or my friend doing drugs and they can't stop? Because you have done what we have called as conditioned your will. You have empowered your will through visualizations, through somatic frequencies, mantras, hakals. So when you visualize something over and over again, and when you empower it with an emotion, you are creating what we call as a conditioning or a pattern. And then you become compelled to do it. You become compelled to smoke, thus you become a chain smoker, because you have conditioned your will to do so. This is why people go to hypnotherapy to get rid of their overeating addiction and their smoking addiction and their drug addiction. I met a woman, and I didn't know this was true. I met a woman just recently over the weekend who has a sex addiction, a real sex addiction. And it was interesting. And that comes about through programming yourself. You see, when you go into what you may call as daydreaming and you visualize something, that's a form of meditation. That's a form of hypnosis. You are programming yourself. And if you do it consistently for 28 days, then you have now programmed yourself to habitually act in a certain manner. And you can't stop. This is why I say, if you want to introduce a new behavior, a new habit, you have got to program yourself through meditation, through visualization. It is the only way to change behavior. A person who has an addiction to Skittles will not change solely because of a motivational speech. A person who orders a business course and lets it sit around week after week and takes no action will not suddenly change because he just attends a motivational lecture by Anthony Robbins. He may become pumped up for a day or two, but then goes back to his default programming. So he must engage in meditation or hypnotherapy in order to condition his will to take action. Does that make sense? And that free will is symbolized by Heru, God's son, Osiris' son within us, the will. I have a free will. This is why in the Kemetic spiritual tradition, you may hear me or Seker Nefertara say, my person likes this, but my self is free and has no likes or dislikes. We differentiate between the person, which is the conditioned aspect of us, and the self, which is the God aspect of us. And when you pass on and you go into the duat, whatever you have programmed into your spirit manifests. The fears, the hang-ups, the jealousies, the anger will all come back to you. This is why you must be ma'at, light of heart, not having any conditionings, not being heavy-hearted. You must be free of those compulsions. Or the creatures of the duat will surface and devour your soul. Amit will devour your soul. And the scales will be inspected by Sebek, and the great judge will be Oser. But your mother, Oset or Isis, which symbolizes meditation and trance, is the key to your salvation, because when you meditate and you go into trance, you give birth to Heru, which is what? Your will. If you do not continually program your will, which is being impregnated within you, that's Oset, being pregnant. If you do not continually visualize and empower the thought in your will, then you will abort that baby or lose or fail to empower your will. if you go half of 28 days, then you will abort that baby, or you will fail to create the pattern for the objective you're going for. So the idea of someone coming along and just saying, I am strong-willed, is not a correct definition of the will or a correct understanding of the will. Your will must first be empowered. Those of us, for example, if somebody is in a car accident, they will have a form of trauma and be afraid to ride in cars. That's a program. The crash, the breaking of the glass, the loud noise, all makes an impression upon the subconscious mind and her will. To rid her of that fear, we must use a set, go into trance, and reprogram her not to be afraid of cars. So when your pimp pastor ministers get on the stage and talk about you must do right, they lack an understanding of the science of self. They don't know that you cannot do right by merely talking to someone. You must program their will. This is why in the old Baptist church, they had it correctly. When the minister would play the music and people in the congregation would get up and dance and sing and visualize themselves doing the right thing in the name of God. That was the right thing. That's how they were programming their spirits. But we lost that. And not even the pimp pastor ministers, some of them from the South knew why they were supposed to have the congregation come up there and dance and sing while going into the alternate state of consciousness. Not even they knew that. But it worked because some of that programming stuck and some of the people had a real prophetic experience that transformed their lives. But this whole Freudian approach does not work, where you sit somebody down and you have them talk about their experiences in hopes that they will come to an epiphany. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't change their behavior. Talking to someone does not change their behavior. They merely may see the error of their ways, but that doesn't stop them from overeating. That doesn't stop them from chain smoking. It doesn't stop them from doing drugs. Their will must be changed through hypnotherapy, through meditation, trance induction. That's the only way your behavior is going to change. Because the way you got yourself into that situation was through trance. You put yourself in an altered state of consciousness by daydreaming. You visualize the good feeling of what it would be to have those cigarettes, and therefore it programmed your will. It programmed you. And you failed to understand that although your person may be a chain smoker, your true self is free of emotional compulsion. If you guys like this video, please hit the like button. Don't forget to donate to the channel. That helps support us to make more videos. And when I say support us, I mean plural, my wives and 16 kids. It's a lot to take care of. Kids are growing. They need new clothing. It's a very difficult situation. 16 kids. All right. This is the key that Anthony Robbins is missing. This is the key to that spiritual leader I told you about is missing. You can't talk people out of suicide. You can't. Because they're conditioned to feel a certain emotion. If you put yourself in an emotional state over and over again, it will become your dominant emotional state. That is the truth, the universal law. If you continually put yourself into a certain emotional state, you'll get to a point where it becomes your de facto emotional state. This is why they were telling this spiritual leader who was asking her congregation to visualize themselves committing suicide. This is why the FBI sent her a letter saying cease and desist from doing that. She said that she's just getting them to visualize suicide to see that it's not a good thing to do. No, she's ignorant of spiritual behavior. She's ignorant of the makeup of man, of woman. If you are asking them to visualize themselves committing suicide and they do it consistently, they will program their will to commit suicide. And they will do it without thinking and do it to where they cannot control their own behavior. Does that make sense? Are you following me? And this tells you she's not a spiritual leader and not someone to follow, because she lacks an understanding of the makeup of man. She lacks the understanding of know thyself. And these pastor preachers are following suit, which is why we should not be following them, and they have yet to be challenged for their erroneous teachings. But you have been reincarnated into this space-time continuum to work with me and to learn from me, so you can fight that good fight, that you can save our people, that you can challenge these pastor ministers, that you can do battle with Set at Ben Hutet. That you are the rightful king, queen that needs to sit on the throne. I want to thank you all for attending. I hope this message has resonated with you. Until I see you on my next broadcast, this is Qesankh Ma'at Keperu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. Ma'at is the beautiful goddess Heru. Until my next broadcast, I'm in Ra.